Welcome to Taxbytes for Expats, the top tax tips you want to know as an expat. The podcast is here to help answer the common queries and concerns expats have when moving to or from Ireland. Complex taxes explained simply. We'll focus on the Irish and international tax issues to be aware of to ensure you save time, money, and stress.
Avoid the hassle of dealing with your bank and transfer online, by app or over the phone or Currencies Direct today. Keep listening for an exclusive offer for Taxbytes for Expats listeners, and thanks to Currencies Direct for their support of this podcast. Hi everyone, welcome to this episode of Taxbytes for Expats. Today I'm very glad to be joined by one of our lovely clients, Tom Lennon. Tom and his wife, Mary Lane, made the move from Charlotte in North Carolina to Limerick after wrapping up long careers and deciding that it was the right moment for them to make a new start. What started as a family connection to Ireland and a daughter who caught the Irish Studies bug at Trinity eventually led Tom to discover his own path to Irish citizenship through the foreign birth registration process. Tom is with us today to share what that journey looked like for him and his family when they made the move, the planning, the paperwork, and the practicalities of relocating as a retiree with deep Irish roots after having a very successful tech career in the US. Tom, thank you very much for joining us. We really, really appreciate you coming on to chat to us.
Steph, I'm retired now, so I have plenty of time to support the podcast and a little payback for the resources that have been so helpful in our move here.
Oh, you're very kind.
Yeah, so this is it's not back to the office really, but I get to play work this way.
You get to give back, and I think there'll be a lot of people who are about to go through what you and the family have just been through, and their interest is going to peak when they hear that you've come on and that you've very kindly agreed to share your experience with us. So we've lots to talk about, but before we do that, I'd love to go back to that moment. I'm not sure when it was, when you and Mary Lane looked at each other and said, "We're going to do this. We're going to move to Ireland." Did that moment exist? What was it like?
I think that we've always had, and she's been such a great, willing partner for adventure. So I'll say that first. But yeah, I think we always had a sense that that a move was in the cards or some change. We've traveled pretty extensively as a family, so around the world a little bit. My work afforded us that opportunity, and we try to instill that in our kids. So they've all studied. They both have studied abroad, and it's just something that felt right to us. But then maybe during COVID, when the path to citizenship and a passport became real, the pieces started to fall into place. And yeah, I just credit Mary Lane. I didn't know how far that thought exercise would go. Like maybe this is something that is just a hobby. It sits next to ancestry.com where I'm filling out the family tree and looking for those connections and just enjoying that bit of a history buff that way too. So very happy when she said, "Oh yeah, let's go, let's go." And yeah, from that point on, it became, at least for me, the hobby side of it, the planning, structured, detailed, deep dive. I'm that guy. I enjoy that kind of thing. So maybe I'm the kind of person that you don't want to be part of my vacation or holiday planning.
Your planner.
Yeah, but you're very happy that I did the work, right? Like we're not going to show up somewhere and wonder what are we doing today.
We're kindred spirits, Tom. My husband will probably have a similar story. I believe in a good itinerary.
Yeah.
I just want to go back to what you said there about COVID and that kind of path to citizenship. Talk us through that. Obviously you have a connection with Ireland and you decided let's do this.
Yeah, my grandparents had emigrated to New York, in the 1920s. So my father was born in New York, and we made trips to see my grandparents. And and hear a few stories. And then I had the opportunity to take my father back to Ireland some years ago on a family vacation, and that was very meaningful. So, there was always this background of interest there. And then the FBR, the foreign birth registration process, really just fit right into my interest in understanding my family relationships and history, et cetera. So it required me to document those
Okay.
things. And so I actually enjoyed that, a little bit of a deep dive. And I will give credit to the Irish government. That process is well documented and easy to follow. I didn't need yet tax advice or any other consultant. I was able to follow that process, submit the paperwork. It took a while, maybe it took, gosh, it was during COVID, right? So the government in Ireland was partially shut down around some of these capabilities and functions. So it maybe took 18 months or so, but very excited when you begin to get correspondence in Irish, with official seal at the mailbox and then a passport, all those things are very exciting.
Wow.
So yeah, it was a lot of fun. It kind of keeps you, create some wins and some momentum along the way.
Mm. It makes it real, doesn't it? It's like, we have a legal ability to go there now. And lots of questions at that point. When you're kind of going through that process, what questions did you have in your mind about what life in Ireland might be like?
I think it was really abstract at that point for me. We had only been over very limited visits. And so I think it really was just the enabling pieces at that time. I don't think I would have had a very old-fashioned American view of Ireland at that point. It's something that would be, other than Dublin, which I had visited, right? It just really wouldn't have been very coherent or very realistic until we began to come over and do what I would call trial runs. So a big part of my planning, back in my career would have been to always have an exit strategy. And so, our path here was to take incremental steps along the way and giving ourselves permission to change our
Yeah.
mind.
Mm.
Like, was this really was this really, had we romanticized this, or was this really something that made sense for us? So, 1 week, 2 weeks, and then a 3-week stay, and then 2 months in a rental, an Airbnb. And then now we've just signed a 1-year lease for an apartment here. So it looks like we're staying, but but we have that exit strategy that says, hey, you know what? If Mary Lane tells me we have a 5-year-old grandson, if she tells me it's time to go back, then we'll head back. But right now, so very happy to be here, and looks like we'll be staying.
That's really, really good. It's really nice.
And now a quick word on our episode sponsor, Currencies Direct. If you're looking for a fast, easy way to transfer money to or from Ireland without the hassle and cost of dealing with your bank, keep it simple with Currencies Direct. Whether you're buying property or require regular currency transfers, Currencies Direct can help you save money. As a special offer for our listeners, when you use the link in the show notes and quote expat taxes when registering with Currencies Direct, you'll receive a €50 one-for-all or Amazon voucher when you transfer €5,000 or more in your first 6 months with Currencies Direct. Registration is quick and easy, and you decide how you transfer 24/7 via their online money transfer service, over the phone with one of their friendly experts, or by using their handy mobile app. Check the show notes or head to currenciesdirect.com to register, and thanks to Currencies Direct for the support of this podcast.
You kind of alluded there to, the short visits and perhaps like a short listing that maybe you were going through. Obviously, as I said in the intro, you guys are in Limerick. Talk us through when you came on those visits, how did you decide where to go? And did you go back to the same places? Did you try, you've alluded to the fact that maybe you went to different locations.
That was interesting. Yeah, I always wanted to test my own understanding, like, why Ireland? So even in the States, we would say, what are the things that are important to us? We want to be in a university town. We want to be near the water. we're on an island, so that one's easy. We need access. We needed to be in a connected city with an airport. So we had these fundamentals, right? But to your point, we needed to really get out and experience it and how to do that. And so, um, gosh, it sounded like the weather would be better over your way on the southeast, So
Marginally.
yeah, we wanted to be connected, so we followed the rail line down, and we spent time along the East Coast. We spent time in Waterford and in Wexford, and went down to Cork, around, and we weren't comfortable at all.
Wow.
I think we just, maybe we didn't stay long enough, but leaving Ireland on one trip last year, my daughter had spent some time in Limerick. She said, "Go through Limerick and see what you think." And yeah, that just kind of made a big difference for us. Now listen, some of it, this is all anecdotal, right? This was not much of a science project, really, as much as I planned. You enter Limerick off a major motorway. The city is small enough to be drivable for an American on the wrong side of
Yeah.
the road. The city itself, the city center, has broad avenues, and it's still rather small. So yeah, it just kind of hit the mark for us. So that's kind of how we ended up here.
It's not necessarily a place that we hear expats move to commonly. Was there anything about it that surprised you when you spent time there? Like, what have you learned about the place and the people now that you've spent a little bit more time there?
Yeah. Well, yeah. So it did check all those boxes, in terms of connected to the rest of Ireland. Shannon feels like a private airport nearby.
It's amazing, isn't it? You just literally walk straight through. I went through it last year. It's amazing.
Yeah, and it's 20 minutes from the city center of Limerick, maybe a little longer. The university is gorgeous. University of Limerick has an amazing campus. It's has a highly regarded sports program. So Mary Lane swims, and so she takes the bus, the 304, out to the university 2 or 3 times a week to swim in the Olympic-sized swimming pool that they have there that produce so many world-class athletes. Anyway, so the university was great upside. Um, Healthcare is a challenge right now in rural Ireland, but I will tell you that we see the investment by government and by the county. So a new hospital just opened here just around the time that we're moving here. So that was upside. I would say for surprise that Ireland is, gosh, changing, right? Like very diverse population here. So we're not the only. There are not a lot of American expats here, but there are expats from all over the world, and so that was interesting to us. I don't know what the numbers are. Is it something like 20% of
Roughly, yeah. And, annually, I think, or if you look back at the most recent census, there was about 140,000 people moved to Ireland. That would be
Yeah,
roughly recurring annual figures now. Similar amounts leaving, but generally, Ireland is very diverse compared to the way it was maybe 15, 20 years ago.
yeah. So that whatever quaint idea of that an American who hasn't visited Ireland might have of rural Ireland, right? It's very different, and so we've appreciated that. When we went to Dublin, Mary Lane, of course, is entitled to be here as spouse of an Irish citizen, but we had to go to Dublin and get permission, and to be in line, to be waiting with people from all over the world in Dublin to get that stamp, and that visa permission for her to be here. It just was a really moving moment because not you don't get that welcome everywhere. So
Yeah.
yeah, it was nice.
Do you find Irish people welcoming?
Yeah, very much so. I think, and that's a good thing because I'm okay on a in a formal speaking engagement like this one, but I'm not an extrovert, and so I have to make an effort to reach out and connect. And I find here that there's always a voice coming back, or a hand coming back from the other side, very welcoming. And And to the point of expats here, one of the things we didn't want to do was end up in a tourist heavy location, or we didn't necessarily want to wake up in the middle of someone else's holiday.
Okay.
So there are wonderful places to visit, in Ireland that would be full of Americans on holiday, and they just didn't fit for us. So we appreciate that Limerick is kind of a gritty, kind of I don't know, regional hub. Not so much a landing spot for tourism.
And I think, some of the major hotspots that tourists go to, they don't necessarily represent what life in Ireland really is like. We generally don't ride horse and cart around our towns, but if you go
Right.
to some of the popular villages, you might be led
Yes.
to believe that that's how we get. I mean, I'm being facetious, but I can understand that. I think what you're saying is that you were looking for a real lived experience.
Yes.
So having sought that out, and I appreciate it's early days. Is Limerick starting to feel like home? If this is home for the foreseeable future, or is it a bit too soon to kind of answer that?
I think we always leave ourselves open to change. I think that's kind of a feature of kind of our approach. But it was hard to find the right apartment.
Okay, yeah,
I mean, listen, I just retired, so our first task was, can we live in a small space together? So we did 3 months in an apartment in the US before coming here.
Mm.
And the answer was yes, we really like each other, so that's working out. But it was hard to find an apartment that looked like what we're used to.
Okay, yeah.
Large American bathroom and showers, and really important for Maryland to be on the water. We have a big glass front to the Shannon River here where we are.
Oh, lovely. Mm.
Yeah, so I guess all that to say is we're getting very comfortable. And I think if at the end of a year, I think it might be hard to think about picking up and moving again,
Mm.
So, we're getting very comfortable in Limerick, meeting friends, getting connected, trying to get engaged in the community. And that's the task at hand now is becoming involved.
And that just takes time, doesn't it? I
Mhm.
remember even from our perspective when we moved to Australia, it took me quite a few years before I could kind of go, I really feel like I'm rooted here, and I have a connection with both the people and the place. And patience is a difficult thing to cultivate sometimes when you've done the planning, the bits where you can kind of tick a box, car, health insurance, you kind of think,
Yes.
well, if I do those things, then I'll end up feeling settled. And it doesn't always work out like that. There is effort required and soft skills that you have to cultivate. You've alluded to them. One thing I just wanted to touch on, and it kind of just harks back to what you were saying about Shannon. Have you found being close to the airport has kind of allowed you to travel back to America or to Europe, or is that something that you'll do in future? Is the focus now on being in Ireland, or do you find yourself kind of going back and forth still a little bit?
We're glad to have the convenience of it. But also, just getting here, we did pop back to a wedding in Boston. So direct flight to Boston was nice to attend a family event. Also nice to be hosting our children here. They're coming at Christmas and bringing our grandson. So the convenience of it is a plus. We are beginning to plan travel out of Shannon. So we have a holiday and another family event in Italy in
Lovely.
April, I think it is. But we also want to see, more of Ireland. My grandmother was from Killybegs up in Donegal.
Oh, it's so beautiful up there.
We want to go up there. We haven't been to Belfast. We haven't been to Northern Ireland. We want to do that. So, we're ready to wrap up the operational pieces of moving here.
Thanks for listening to Taxbytes for Expats. Please do leave a rating or review wherever you listen to your podcast. And as always, remember to take professional tax advice specific to your personal circumstances before acting or refraining from action in connection with the matters dealt with in this series. The material in this podcast is intended to give general guidance only.